right. Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. I hope you have enjoyed the summit so far. My name is Neve Hughes. I am the VP of Brand and Communications at Course Hero. We're so pleased to be hosting this event for everybody here. We're also pleased to welcome you to this particular session. So, preparing students for an AI-enabled future with William Hardaway. Thank you, William, for joining us today. We hope this session will inspire everyone to share ideas with one another throughout the session. We welcome questions and comments and feedback. Feel free to cameras if you like. We will have people naturally muted, but once it comes to the time to ask questions, we will enable unmuting of your audio. Please do respect people's privacy and make sure that you're being considerate in the chat and in the questions that you ask. Be mindful of time. So we just ask for you to think about those things before you do speak up. We welcome for you to save the chat. That should be possible if you just look at the three dots below the chat box. I think the chat saving is enabled. And without further ado, I would like to introduce William. William has a background in design thinking, product design, and student services. William received his bachelor's degree in philosophy from Fresno State, which is where he is right now in Fresno, where it's very nice and hot, as well as a master's degree in higher education administration and leadership, where he wrote a thesis on creative problem solving as a tool to address inequities in higher education. He is passionate about the role of instructional design and how it plays in technology in the classroom, as well as inclusive teaching. Please join me in welcoming William and enjoy this session.
Hello, everyone. Before I get the slide deck started up here, if you're in a safe space to turn your camera on, that would be great. I think for me, facial expressions, emotion, elation, frustration are good cues for a learning environment. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, and I know in the news, generative text and image to text have been making the rounds on the Datelines and the 60 Minutes and in our YouTube feeds. And so hopefully this isn't the first conversation you've had about artificial intelligence or the first conversation you've heard on artificial intelligence, but the goal here is for it to be one that has a little bit more depth in terms of what we can do in the classroom. So the first thing we want to do is do a delayed chat activity, right? So this will be, I'm going to set a timer on my phone for 1 minute. And I want you to type based on the prompt into the chat box. And then after that 1 minute timer goes off, we will have you do a chat blast in Zoom here with your thoughts about the prompt. So the prompt is, let me minimize our little thumbnails. The prompt is, what is one fear you have about the future of higher education? This could be about technology, pedagogy, policy, student engagement, equity, or any other topic that comes to mind. Please take a minute to write your response, but do not press send yet. And so you can specifically center that around AI, or you can center that around other fears as well. And the 1 minute timer has begun. Oops. And so as we get to the 40-second mark, I think I've spoken to a lot of faculty about their fears around AI specifically, and then their fears of coming back to campuses post-pandemic and what that means for student engagement, and also what that means for their own engagement and faculty engagement, and how we're feeling coming back to these spaces, to the brick and mortar spaces. And we are at the 10-second mark. So please submit your chat in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. weakening of human critical thinking, reliance on AI, reducing the degree of student learning, too much emphasis on white men, academic integrity and lack of knowledge because students are becoming lazy and simply using AI to do the work for them, lack of student engagement, discerning what is real and what is fake. The educators will not be able to keep up with how to use AI and pedagogy in a way that effectively serves students for the world we live in, that effectively serves students for the world we live in, which then results in misuse/abuse by students. Okay. Not having students not having enough time because of economic and equity factors. Okay. Thank you for that. So these are things that I've definitely heard before. And so hopefully what we can do during this presentation is kind of give you some things to explore in order to mitigate some of those fears or to strategize around some of those fears. So the first thing I want to start with is beyond our walls and as an academy, what is going on with AI currently? And AI has been around for a few decades, but in this latest iteration of predictive text, there's definitely been a launching point for some real innovation to occur. So first, I wanted to bring up smart agriculture as part of the environmental category here. AI is being used for precision farming by analyzing data from drones, satellites, and sensors to optimize irrigation, predict the best planting dates, and detect pests or diseases. This is how an example of how we're using it in agriculture. How we're using it with energy efficiency, Google used their DeepMind machine learning to come up with ways to reduce energy use for cooling its data centers by 40%. Biodiversity monitoring wildlife and species that are endangered. Projects like Wildlife Insights leverage AI for those uses. Predictive modeling of where migration patterns will occur and those things. What about the health industry? We often talk about the health industry, hear about the health industry in the news, and I think many of our universities are preparing students to go into the health field. I know for us at Fresno State, our College of Health and Human Services is our biggest college by enrollment. Companies like Zebra Medical Vision use AI to detect diseases like cancer, heart conditions, and liver diseases early, allowing for more effective treatment. Drug discovery, being able to run algorithms to predict molecules that might be effective in combating certain diseases and the creation of new medications. And then for us in the field of education, what types of things are going on? So AI is being used for automated grading, freeing up time for educators to spend on teaching. Faculty can create rubrics, grading schemes, and canned responses for common open-ended feedback. Open materials. So faculty are beginning to use AI to create open materials, providing learning outcomes and objectives and style prompts to produce articles, chapters, and visuals. Oops. Classrooms, activities, and projects. So faculty are using AI to iterate activities, projects, and assignments to enhance the classroom experience. And so you'll get an opportunity today to interact with an exercise for how creating a rubric and an activity using AI would work, how it feels, as a means to kind of understanding the softwares that are out there that we're all currently talking about, to engage our conversation on what this means for our students currently, because we talked about what this means for industry. So if industry is already using artificial intelligence, it it might be important for us to educate students on artificial intelligence as well. But of course, that comes with how do we do that while mitigating the misuse of artificial intelligence. So here are some of the benefits for preparing students for the present and future of AI. So the competitive edge, we talked about the career aspect, what industries are using artificial intelligence and how they're using it for better decision making. In my field in design, we often talk about iteration being an important part of critical thinking. And I think it's a different model for how critical thinking presents in other disciplines. But essentially, iteration is, let me get a bunch of ideas on the table that I can evaluate and judge before I come to a decision. Oftentimes, the way we come to a decision or a point of critical thought is we only have a few options or a few ideas or a few thoughts and base our creativity off of that. And so the scale at which AI can produce ideas based on prompt and training is nearly infinite. And so that is what it means by better decision making, improved problem solving. So learning about AI can enhance critical thinking and problem solving skills. And this is where that delicate balance happens, right? Because a lot of our fears right now is students can misuse this to misrepresent themselves, right? They can misuse this to take credit for thoughts and ideas that they didn't really form. And so how do we teach them to leverage this to improve their problem solving skills rather than to supplement, to completely replace them? It promotes innovation. Understanding AI can stimulate creativity and innovation. Students could go on to develop new AI applications or find innovative ways to use existing technology. Social impact. As AI continues to play a significant role in our lives, it's essential for students to understand its societal impacts. This could range from ethical considerations, like how AI should be governed, to understanding how AI could be used to solve social problems. And then I would add to that, understanding the limitations of AI around social and cultural problems. And it sounded like somebody was coming off mic to maybe contribute or ask something. Oh, maybe not. Digital literacy. So I was just at a conference with a colleague, and we were driving back from the conference was at the LAX hotel, and we were driving back to Fresno, and we were talking about what literacy means today. And we were talking about how digital literacy is a bit different than literacy and how we traditionally think of it. And in fact, one thing that I was bringing up is we have students that come through our Summer Bridge program every summer through the Educational Opportunity Program here. What I started to notice over the decade of seeing those students come to college for the first time is that many of them would start typing their papers on their phones. And initially, I thought this was maybe just a resource issue, right? They didn't have access to laptops or computers, but we gave them access to computers. And I would still notice students at the computer lab typing on their phone. When I inquired about this, many of them shared that they type faster on their phone. And then I asked, and I told them about when I was in school, we had keyboarding classes to learn how to keyboard. And many of them expressed they didn't have such classes. And so a lot of times I would talk to students about how it felt to get larger papers if they couldn't keyboard, and they often expressed that it was a very challenging situation where they knew they were capable of getting the ideas out, they knew they were capable of constructing the paper, but just physically it was a daunting task to type that much without knowing how to properly keyboard. And so you think about digital literacy and you think about what aspects besides just being able to read, judge content are part of what it means to be digitally literate today. Future-proofing careers, many jobs of the future will involve in some form AI. And preparing our students for that, I think, is important. There are AI prompt engineering positions that are popping up every day over the past few months. And that is a position that 3 years ago wouldn't be as prevalent as it is now. And so industry is expecting its professionals to leverage AI. And so as stewards of getting students onto their career and onto reshaping our society, it would be important that we in some way prepare students to engage with AI. So before we get to our activity, I would like to, let me stop share so I can see everyone. I would like to open it up for any questions thus far.
Well, I'll fix the unmute section. I just did want to point out one question from Lisa Moranto. Can you provide more insight into how AI is being used in these fields? I only think of it as typing in answers and see if AI was used. So hopefully some of the examples you shared in your section just helped, but I think.
So I can specifically talk about how I use it, right? Even outside of education, because I do design work, product design work in technology. So we have this thing in that industry that's called quality assurance. And basically after we design the app, we have to go in and test it to make sure that it works properly, that it's readable, that the spacing is a way that people can easily understand the app, navigate the app. And so what we do is we go through and we test, and then we write bugs, right? We write like a page worth of content about how this bug presented, how it should have presented, and then we give recommendations to the developers on how they should fix it. And so what I did was I spent an hour and a half training an AI thread in ChatGPT specifically to, from a one sentence prompt, write that full page for me. And so my job as a designer is best spent designing the app. And the quality assurance portion is me communicating to developers about how a bug presents. And so I was able to automate that process of let me type in one sentence, the button that should appear after a user clicks submit is not popping up. And then it gives me the full page and protocol of how that should be formatted. And then I can tell it what device I was testing on and all these things. But where before, as a designer, that was a tedious task that kind of took me away from more creative work.
On that long ago Sunday night, Lynn.
I think we have 3 more questions. Lisa, Malda, and then Mike, and then Rosalind. Lisa?
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to get my video showing. Thank you so much for answering that other piece of the question. I was kind of interested in if you knew how the agriculture would work. Like, how would you develop a system, let's say, to say, okay, if you have X number of hot days, you're more likely to have this insect or this disease pop up, or you should be spraying X time or whatever. How does AI, I don't even know how to begin to utilize AI in that fashion. Do we have to be technologically savvy, or is this something that is pretty much easy to do and you just go in? And is all GPT the same?
In terms of, is all generative text the same?
Yeah, in other words, is there like, when you buy a typewriter or a phone, some phones have 250 amounts of storage, others 560.
Got it.
Are they all the same?
In that respect, they are all different. Today, we're going to explore ChatGPT and Google Bard because they're kind of the leading platforms in this field. And like a key difference between those two is that ChatGPT will catalog and train their AI up to, I think right now, September 2021. So if you ask a question about something that happened in the last 2 months, it won't be able to answer that.
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
It's really built to just give generative text based on 2021 prior. While Google Bard, they do a release, I think, every quarter. And so if you asked it about something that happened in January, like a world event or something like that, it would know. So that's like a key difference in terms of feature set. And then of course, storage limits, prompting limits are always going to be different with these platforms. Right now, the business model for ChatGPT and OpenAI, at least, which probably won't last long, there is a GPT Plus that users kind of pay extra for, like $20 a month. But their business model currently is, hey, we provide this service for free to folks with a limit of how much prompting they can do. And if you are a company that wants to train AI for a specific purpose, you have to pay us to do that per prompting that happens on whatever platform you create. So that's
Okay,
the current business model.
very, very informative. Thank you so much.
Malda?
Good.
Yes, hello. I've been trying to incorporate, actually to use AI as an integral part of my courses. I teach economics. The problem that I have been facing and the aversion from the institution, which is very legitimate, is that most AI softwares are not accessible. And that is very legitimate. So how do we address that in the classroom? How can is there a way to deal with that? So that is my question.
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. And in development, it is always the case that developers don't represent specific populations. And so what I would say in terms of that, it would depend on the individual student and what their needs are. And so I think if you do want to integrate artificial intelligence into the classroom, what you can do is first, as the faculty member, you can sit down and consult with your Services for Students with Disabilities office and professionals there to have them look at the software and talk about where you might be able to supplement and aid students in the use of it, or where you might have to structure things differently. That would be the start. There are some things we could do within the actual prompting. You can ask GPT, for example, to include headers and things like that in responses that it does give. That is a little bit helpful. But overall, yes, the accessibility of these softwares was not the first thought in the design of them.
Thank you.
Mike?
Hi. This technology and other technologies are developing all the time, and nobody really knows how they work. You wouldn't take a drug, you wouldn't buy a car, you wouldn't fly in a plane unless you knew it was regulated, tested in some way. Yet, in education, we seem to be happy to just take whatever's on offer and try and use it when we have no idea how it works. Can that continue like this? I mean, new technologies are being developed all the time.
Hold on a second.
What is the approach people are going to have?
And I didn't catch the last part of part of your question.
Well, I'm saying, how are people going to approach this? People are playing with ChatGPT. They're trying to do prompt engineering. They're trying to reverse engineer, trying to work out how to use ChatGPT by trying it and then seeing what it does. And but it's a moving target. Is this a way to use technology without some sort of knowledge about what it's trained on, how it works? And it seems a crazy way to go about things.
What's interesting is I think that what we often do as human beings is we sit in our own individual space with all of our bias, and we create something, and we don't realize the impact that something is going to have on society. So I doubt that OpenAI really thought it. And in fact, when ChatGPT was released and the response was so heavy, the developers admitted that they were not prepared for the level of people that were going to be using it, and all the concerns that came out after. Like, for example, ChatGPT was trained on data by specific developers. And so if you ask it specific questions in specific domains, specifically related to society and culture, it gets it very wrong. But the fact that the tool is out there in the world, it is important to educate our students on the literacy of, even if and leveraging AI is kind of a misnomer, right? Even if it is to help students understand the limitations of AI. Like, I guess my answer is you can't put the genie back in the bottle because you didn't let it out. But unfortunately, we all have to suffer the consequences of it being out.
Thank you, Will. I think we have a few more. Do you want to continue with the presentation? And
Yeah,
answer
can I
questions
just
after,
come
or-
back on that? You know, why can't you regulate it as an
Sorry, Mike,
institution?
just one
No,
second. Can we just ask Will to determine how he would like to continue? We only have 15 minutes left. Do you want to continue the conversation, Will, or Mike?
So I guess a good predictor for where we should go, if we should stay in Q&A or if we should go to the activities, is if I can get a show of hands of folks who have, and Neva, if you can give me a count. So raise your virtual hand if you have spent more than 2 hours using a predictive text tool. So far less than half, right, Neve?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it would be important to go onto the technology, but Mike, I would be interested if you could DM me in the chat. I would be interested in what you were about to say, for sure. Okay, let's get back to it. So I do think part of understanding others is understanding ourselves, and to that extent, I think part of understanding what the applications of generative text may be is understanding what applications there are out there for us in our domain and in our discipline. And I think it's important that to strengthen our arguments for why we may not want our students to engage with AI, it's important to experience it. And so, Neve, if you can provide like the open AI link to ChatGPT and the link to Google Bard in the chat, that would be great. This first activity is your only goal is to use either ChatGPT or Google Bard. If you are a Google campus, you actually have to use a personal Google account to try this. For example, our campus has chosen not to enable Google Bard on our campus. So you would have to use a personal Gmail. And then for ChatGPT, you can use whatever preferred email you have. But essentially, you're going to use any generative text AI you have access to and create a rubric for a current assignment you have. Ask the AI to put the rubric in a table format for you and spend 5 minutes prompting the AI to modify the rubric. You can feed the AI whatever assignment prompt if you want, or you can just describe the assignment, but you're going to produce the best rubric you possibly can. And that could mean that you're going to prompt the AI 10 times. It could be that you prompt the AI 3 times. But I just want you to experience this exercise. And what I'll do is once I start the timer, I will play some music so that we're not sitting in complete silence. And then we'll see how this goes. We'll have a discussion around it. And if the discussion doesn't go too long, we can get to another activity, which would be creating an in-class activity. So I will start the 5-minute timer.
And Will, your audio is just a little loud if you want to.
The shopping destination for 100% authentic pre-loved handbags from Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Hermes, and more. Up to
Is that okay?
Maybe a touch lower and you're good.
Okay, reactions. You can lower your hand. I know a few folks might have their hands still raised from when we're asking about how many folks had some experience. But now if you could raise your hand to, if you're willing to share a reaction based off the activity we just did. Grammy, and please correct my pronunciation. Grammy?
Graham,
Graham?
okay, perhaps James.
James? Anybody who wants to share a reaction? And there are some reactions coming in the chat if you want to read those.
I don't
Hi,
mind.
this is Epic. Oh, go ahead.
James?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great tool. I've been using it. One of the earlier things I did was try to create a rubric like that. So I think that's a really good place for people that aren't aware of the technology or feel like fearful of it, to see some of the utility that can make our lives as educators a lot easier, actually. And if we, we got to learn how to work with it. We can't ban it. So get good at using it and help students to learn how to use it so it's effective for them as well.
And James, what are some of the, like, as you were producing rubrics in the past, like what are some of the limitations that you found around it producing rubrics effectively?
Well, the first thing was just getting it to like align things the right way. And then I couldn't figure out how to actually move a table out of ChatGPT, because if you just hit the copy button, it takes it as like a all text. But if you highlight and copy it, it'll come right over and it's actually like a full table. So for me, most of the limitations were things that I just hadn't learned yet. To be really honest, like I didn't do anything super complex in terms of the rubric. It was very simple, but something that would probably take, upwards of an hour to get together.
Right.
Just getting those prompts in there. And that's really the limitation, is how well you can produce the prompts. And so you can get better at it.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question or a reaction they want to share from the activity? I see.
Hi.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, this
Yes,
is
Lauren.
Rosalind.
Oh, Rosalind, hey.
Thanks for sharing that. I've found that ChatGPT and being very helpful as a resource for me as a faculty member. I teach writing courses, college English 1 and 2, foundation English. And I would say last semester, I had to throw out an assignment because I realized that they all heavily used ChatGPT. And so when you're talking about teaching students critical thinking and writing, APA citation, I literally had to go back to old school. All the bags at the front, I literally gave them paper and a pen, and that was it. And that's the only way I could really assess it. So I do think that while it's amazing, we really have to be vigilant as instructors to make sure that the students are actually learning.
Yes, and Rosalind, what's interesting is I've been recommending to faculty in the redesign of some of their assignments that they do more in-class writing, and maybe and for some folks that might not be the actual assignment. It might be just I can have a pile of my students writing improv so that I know how their tone is, what word choice they typically make. And I can let my students know that as I'm grading, I'm going to be looking for your voice. Yeah, but that is very important, because while it can be a useful tool, as we've been sharing, it can also be a detriment to student learning. Laura? Lori, I see you raise your actual hand as well.
Like Rosalind, I'm a teach first year writing, and one of the things that I ended up doing during spring semester was having the students explore the limitations of ChatGPT themselves. I said, okay, we're going to spend a day playing with this. What is it working for, and what is it not working for?
Mm.
And in the process, I figured out that the biggest distinction between ChatGPT and a human writer is that it can't ask for clarification.
Mhm.
We just have to read what it gives us back and says, no, that's not it. Therefore, we have to do another prompt.
Right. And you have to know what questions to ask. And what I tell students is you have to have a knowledge base in order to effectively use this tool on whatever
Exactly.
content that you're trying to come up with. And I think walking students through a process like that when they're doing a project would be super important. Like, how do you make sure that you have the proper knowledge, or where do you get the proper knowledge from in order to use generative text?
Yes, I have found that ChatGPT comes up with kind of like made up facts.
Yes, it does.
It's a language model. It's not a science model or a factual model. And so it can come up with details that are similar to the things that it has found. So it really makes things up. And as a composition instructor, that's a little challenging because my students write in content areas that I may or may not be familiar. Like I have aviation students.
Right.
I'm not highly aware of the ins and outs of aviation, but I can do what I can. But students need to be aware that it is not a factual thing.
Right.
When it presents a fact, they should verify that that is factual before they use it in some way in their own writing. And it makes up references, which is very interesting.
It does.
Literal, references that are just not even actual sources.
And what annoys me most about the way it does it is it's arrogant, like it's super confident in being wrong.
And so students aren't going to guess at this. They're going to look at what they get, just like they look at Wikipedia, which often rehashes information that experts would say, scholars would say that, well, that's kind of true, but it's not really the essence of like the cutting edge of things, So on the internet, you'll get rehashed information, and students will often just accept that information, even though it's pretty basic, it's not the sparkly stuff in the scholarly journals. And ChatGPT is even like a little lower level of that. They're just going to look at it and say it looks good and not question the lack of factuality.
Okay, I think we're at time. I'm going to put my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach out and discuss and have a conversation. And then thank you for your time. Thank you for the good conversation. I'm always interested in folks' different perspectives on this. I don't know what my perspective is quite yet. I have been making use of the tool myself. I have been coaching and helping faculty design ways to mitigate plagiarism and just a lack of critical thought while using AI among students. But this was a great conversation.
Can I say something quickly?
Please.
I have a student in my intersectionality class that did use AI to turn in their midterm. And within the text, there's a sentence or two, and it says, the question is, how do you identify with? And the result was, I'm a language AI, so I don't really have an identity. However, I can speak on the subject. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. So
Yes. I've gone down a logic hole with AI about I was basically making the claim that it had bias. It claimed that it did not. I asked what are the demographics of the technology field in terms of race and ethnicity and gender. It gave me that information. And then I said, well, if you were trained by these folks, wouldn't you have bias? It said, yes, it's likely that the people who trained me have bias, but I can't have bias because I'm an AI.
Thank you so much, Will. It was such a pleasure having you. Thank you everyone for joining this fantastic session. And Will, amazing tips. The presentation was shared in the chat and you can download the chat if you click the 3 buttons in the bottom corner. And also just want to give a shout out to our team who's putting on an AI Academy later. It's a series that's going to be happening, of course, it's happening later this fall. And I'll just put it in the chat here in case you missed that link before. Thanks, everybody. And the session is open for, if you want to go to other sessions, just go back to the agenda page and you can join some other sessions that are happening. All right, lots of activity here. Awesome. Good to see. Will, any parting words? You good?
Parting words, I guess, would be to explore it if you want to make sure your students are not using it, and explore it if you want to make sure your students are using it.
Thank you. Fantastic. And this recording will be available online afterwards for anybody who is looking for it. I'll just hang in here to close out our session as people drop off. Thank you, Will. Take care.